The government's also implemented a snitch line, we'll call it, where you can phone on your neighbor and I mean, come on. I mean, this is turning your neighbors against one another. This isn't coming together in a pandemic and helping one another.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Cornwall, Ontario. Well, folks, I'm standing outside MacMillan's milk store. It is very much like thousands of other variety stores across Canada. That little corner spot where you go to buy your lottery tickets or cigarettes or candy bars or pop. And yet, here we have yet another epicenter of COVID-19 enforcement madness. You see, when the new rules kicked in, well, it looks like the MacMillans, in the eyes of law enforcement, simply weren't quick enough in implementing those measures, such as plexiglass screens at the cash out and directional arrows on the floor and assorted other signage. Even though they were in the process of complying, they simply weren't complying quick enough, and yep, they got one of those $880 fines. And it's a crying shame. I mean, the MacMillans put in hard work, long hours. They operate on razor-thin margins. They recently suffered a theft of almost $5,000, a theft that remains unsolved. And yet, here it was that a police officer came by and stung them with an $880 ticket. Earlier this month, a police officer paid a visit to your milk store, and what happened?
What happened? Well, there was some measures put in place, I guess, on the 3rd with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, some guidelines. And the officer popped into our business. It would have been the 5th of April when he popped in, late in the afternoon, to inform us that we weren't in compliance with the new rules that were laid out by EOHU, Eastern Ontario Health Unit. And immediately we begun reading over the document that he left us. He had told us that he's not going to be issuing a fine at this time. He would allow us a little while to read over things and put these measures into place, which would be the plexiglass and the arrows on the floor for social distancing. So he wasn't going to fine us until he spoke it over with Dr. Paul Remuliotis at the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and they would determine whether a fine would be put in place. However, the officer come back within the hour, and he fined us $880.
And I mean, Travis, this is astounding. It's not as though you put up a ruckus. You said, no, I don't believe in these measures. You started to immediately implement what you were told to implement, and within an hour, they're back to fine you $880?
Yes, and that kind of blew us away by surprise when he come back to fine us, because I don't believe he really took the time to talk this through with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit to begin with. So, to come in and blindside us with a fine like that is really unfair, considering I was putting the safety measures in place immediately after seeing this form. We take things very extremely seriously as we hold licensing with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission for our lottery terminal and things like that. And I mean, we take that very seriously. Even with the sale of tobacco products in our business, the Eastern Ontario Health Unit is here and provide binders and information on, training tools on how to handle the sales properly. So, I mean, the health unit, had they come forward on the morning of the 4th with some kind of guidelines in place and gave a time period to implement these, but to be targeted like this and fined out of the blue for something you're completely dumbfounded and unaware of is just totally unfair. COVID-19 is brand new to all of us, really, and nobody seems to really have a grasp on exactly what the rules should be. I mean, Dr. Paul Remuliotis does speak in our local paper how he is working with small business and helping small business, but we have not had a visit. We have not had an email from them. We haven't had a phone call. I mean, Canada Post is still operating. They could have sent a registered letter. In fact, they could have sent this form via registered letter. 2 weeks prior to this, we just had a break and enter in the evening, which were out basically $4,800 as well. And I mean, we do have insurance, but insurance is quite hard to get in our business. We're considered as high risk. So, do we make an insurance claim and risk, no renewal at renewal time, or having to shop around and, maybe the premiums go way up, So, we're kind of at a catch where we just have to suck it up and suck up the $800 as well. I mean, we're debating on whether we should fight this ticket. Again, that ties us up a whole day in court again as well, which is, more loss to us having to pay an employee when we should be in our business running our business.
I'm going to say something now that I hope convinces you to fight that ticket. As you know, we are raising crowdfunding through our fightthefines.com website, and I'd like to extend the opportunity to make use of a top-notch Toronto criminal lawyer. His name is Sam Goldstein. He's going to be our man in Eastern Canada to fight these tickets when the courts get back, into order. So what I'm offering for you right now, Travis, is that should you choose to fight that ticket, we, through our viewers, our crowdfunding, will pay every nickel of your legal fees. So I don't know, how does that sound in terms of taking the man to court?
Yeah, definitely. We would definitely join on that for sure. Again, in reality, we feel we've been treated very unfairly, and yes, I think that would be a great program to get hooked up with.
Well, folks, I'm now joined by our legal eagle extraordinaire. That would be Sam Goldstein, to weigh in on the MacMillan affair. And Sam, when I look at how this couple is being treated by law enforcement, one thing we've learned with this whole COVID-19 business is who the essential workers are and who are those workers who aren't so essential. So I'm thinking of the truckers. They haul everything to the Walmarts and the Costcos of the world. The people like the MacMillans that get up early to serve the public even in these trying times. And yet here we have the state seemingly throwing the book at these people for what? Not acting fast enough on protocols?
Yeah, since Rebel News started their Fight the Fines website, you've certainly been inundated by people who want to fight back, and I'm taking on many of the cases. But really, of all the cases I've seen so far, this really exercises me the most. It's just the unfairness of it just completely stands out. Here's a family who are in Cornwall. They own a mom and pop type store, convenience store. It's their sole livelihood. And the Eastern Ontario Health Region, I believe, passed an ordinance requiring stores that are still open to start putting lines down on the floor for social distancing, putting up plexiglass from between the customers and the clerks, and so on. And it was just a week prior, if not less than a week, that this ordinance went into effect. There's no wide publicity about it at all. A police officer, as I understand it, visited the MacMillans. Mr. MacMillan, as soon as he was told about the new ordinance and the requirements, he immediately started complying. The police officer came back an hour later. He had put up, I understand, a plexiglass, but he may not have put up everything that the ordinance required. And the police officer fined him. Once the state proves that the actus or the act took place and he wasn't in compliance, it switches to the defendant to prove what's called a due diligence defense. And as you could probably tell, it means that this person was trying to practice due diligence. And I think in Mr. MacMillan's case, he was trying to be duly diligent about implementing the ordinances. So in addition to, I think there might be a charter case based on Section 7, he also has the regular defenses, which is that he was trying to be duly diligent about complying with the ordinance.
Well, Sam, I think this is an egregious thing that's happened to the MacMillans. As we discussed, they're up early, go to bed late, working on razor-thin margins during this pandemic. And for them to be treated this way, it is, as I've said, just absolutely egregious. So thank you for taking on the case of the MacMillans. And again, thank you to our viewers who are going to fightthefines.com and chipping in to help cover the legal fees, because people like the MacMillans certainly don't deserve to be treated like this. If you have a story you'd like to tell, please go to fightthefines.com. Conversely, if you don't have a story but you'd like to contribute so that we can cover the legal fees of our legal team, please make a donation if you can. because we're not going to allow the state, even during a state of emergency, to trample over our rights. So please, once again, folks, go to fightthefines.com and help us stand up for your rights.